Modern Rustic Garden Ideas 2025, Nature-Inspired Trends, Pottery Paths and Sustainable Living. Modern rustic gardens, they exist at the meeting point between two distinct worlds. One, the refined, deliberate precision of modern design. The other, the warm, tactile beauty of nature's own textures. In 2025, this marriage of opposites has become more nuanced, more intentional. We see the weathered beauty of reclaimed wood, its grain etched by time, standing confidently beside the crisp, clean lines of brushed metal. We see minimalist furniture, quiet, disciplined, almost austere, softened by the hand-shaped imperfections of clay pots, each one carrying the subtle marks of the artisan who made it. The spaces are not sealed, they are not closed off. Instead, they are open, breathing, connected to the wider landscape as if they were born from it. Pathways curve into meadows, decks dissolve into grass, pergolas invite the light to pour through. It is a garden that does not stand apart from nature, but moves in harmony with it, framing and enhancing what is already there. This is a collaboration, not a competition. The structural lines guide the eye, yet never dominate. The plants, the light, and the materials share the stage equally, each one necessary, each one respected. The foundation of this style is found in its devotion to natural, tactile materials. Timber is still king, whether it is left raw with knots and saw marks proudly on display or treated just enough to deepen its tone. Timber shapes decks, builds pergolas and forms benches that invite touch. It warms the space, giving it a sense of history, a reminder that every plank once lived as part of something greater. Stone follows close behind. Flagstone, slate, river rock. Each carries weight, texture and permanence. Underfoot, they ground the pathways. In walls, they hold the earth in place. In steps, they guide the movement through the space. They are not just practical, they are anchors connecting the design to the ancient rhythms of the land. And then there is clay, terracotta and ceramic. These are not just decorative touches, they are functional and symbolic. They hold the roots of plants, they carry water in bird baths, they shape the gentle flow of fountains and basins. In 2025, we lean toward what is reclaimed, what is local, materials that carry a story and demand less of the earth to bring them here. This is design with conscience, with intention, with authenticity. Pottery in this style is no longer simply a vessel. It is a presence. It is sculpture. It stands alone as an art form, even when empty. Large, weathered urns may guard the entrance to the garden like sentinels. The clusters of mismatched clay pots scattered around a seating area bring an intimacy and a human touch to the scene. They lean toward imperfection, toward surfaces that bear the fingerprint of the maker, toward earthy tones that echo the colours of the soil itself. Terracotta reds, muted olive greens, charcoal greys, each blending effortlessly into the natural palette of the garden. We see new uses for pottery too. Stacked forms, wall-mounted designs, creating vertical gardens that not only hold plants but also serve as living artworks. They climb walls, they catch the light, they expand the idea of what a container can be. Pathways in a modern rustic garden are more than routes from one place to another. They are journeys in themselves. They curve, they wander, they draw you forward slowly, letting the garden reveal itself in pieces. In 2025, the shapes are irregular, the edges softened. We see flagstone set in moss, crushed gravel outlined with timber, winding cobblestone trails that seem as though they've been there forever. These paths are often framed with river stones, or low ground covers that blur the line between path and planting. At night, the experience changes. Lighting becomes more than utility, it becomes storytelling. Small, concealed lights pick out the textures of stone, the grain of wood, the subtle shift of leaves in the breeze. The garden glows, inviting movement even after the sun has gone. Sustainability, in this design language, is not a trend, it is a principle. It defines the choices we make, from the plants we select to the power that lights the path. We choose drought-tolerant species and native plants that know how to thrive with what nature already gives. We capture rainwater and feed it back into the soil. We light with the sun's own energy and build with what has already been used, already proven its worth. Raised garden beds made from reclaimed timber become homes for herbs, vegetables, and flowers that can be eaten. Composting areas return organic matter to the earth. Closing the circle. Every choice respects the land and gives back as much as it takes. The planting palette of 2025 is alive with diversity and tuned to the rhythm of the seasons. Grasses sway in the wind, catching the low evening light. Perennials bloom and fade, leaving seed heads for birds and structure for the winter. Shrubs are chosen not just for flowers, but for bark, for leaf, for the way they carry themselves through the year. Clematis climbs the pergola. Honeysuckle weaves through timber posts, softening their lines with blooms and scent. Herbs like rosemary, thyme, and lavender release their fragrance when brushed against, grounding the visitor in a sensory experience that is as much about smell and touch as sight. Colours are chosen with restraint: rust reds, dusty purples, sun-softened yellows. They blend rather than shout, creating a harmony that feels as though it has always been here. And always, this garden is meant to be lived in, not merely admired from a distance. Under the shelter of a timber pergola, there is a table, worn smooth by years of meals and conversation. Stone benches curve around a fire pit, ready for evenings under the stars. An outdoor kitchen stands ready, clay pizza oven warm, herb pots within arm's reach. Soft light spills across the pathways, guiding you from one gathering place to another. In every corner, there is a sense of invitation, a place to pause, to sit, to talk. This is not a display, it is an extension of the home, a place where design meets life, and life in turn gives meaning to the design. In the modern rustic garden, every line, every texture is a deliberate choice. It is not about filling space, but about creating relationships between form and function, between the built and the grown. When I design such a garden, I begin with the bones, the structures that will hold the vision in place for decades. A pergola, for instance, is more than shade. It is a frame for the sky. Its timber posts, thick, grounded, carry the weight of both structure and history. Above, beams invite the shifting play of sunlight, dappling the ground, changing with each hour. Over time, climbing plants weave themselves into this frame, softening edges, adding scent, changing the experience from season to season. Nearby, a low stone wall may mark the edge of a terrace. The stone is not cut too precisely. It is laid with intention but left irregular enough to feel of the earth. Lichen may claim its surface. Moss may gather at its base. These are not flaws. They are signs of a living design. The wall may also serve as seating, as a resting point along the path, its function quietly folded to its form. Material transitions are essential. A deck of reclaimed timber may flow naturally into a gravel path, and that path may spill into a small lawn or meadow. Where materials meet, the join is softened, perhaps with a planting bed, perhaps with stepping stones set into the ground cover. There is no harsh division, because in a modern rustic garden, nothing should feel abrupt. Even boundaries are treated with subtlety. Instead of fences, we may use hedges of native shrubs or staggered timber screens that filter the view without closing it entirely. If a fence is necessary, it is built with purpose, perhaps woven willow, perhaps weathered boards that let the wind through. The aim is to define space without shutting out the surrounding landscape. Water, too, plays its part. Not as a grand spectacle, but as a quiet companion. A small fountain of stone or clay, set where the path curves, offers the sound of movement, the shimmer of reflected light. A shallow bird bath, carved from reclaimed rock, becomes a meeting point for wildlife. If space allows, a pond edged with flagstone may host aquatic plants, its surface broken by the occasional ripple of a breeze or the landing of a dragonfly. In 2025, many choose to integrate water with sustainability in mind. Collected rainwater, filtered naturally through gravel and plants, feeds these features without waste. The presence of water enriches the experience, yet respects the needs of the environment. Furniture in the modern rustic garden is neither purely decorative nor purely functional. It is chosen as much for the story it tells as for the comfort it offers. A bench carved from a single slab of wood, bearing the curves and imperfections of the original tree, feels both ancient and modern. A dining table, its surface built from salvaged planks, invites gatherings that last long into the evening. Seating is placed with care to catch the morning light, to offer a view of a flowering bed, to be close enough to a herb planter that one can reach for rosemary while cooking. Some seats are permanent, anchored into the structure of the garden. Others are movable, allowing the space to adapt to different moments and needs. Lighting design is critical, yet often overlooked. In the modern rustic garden, light is not just a tool for visibility. It is a way to shape mood, to guide movement, to reveal textures that daylight hides. We use soft, warm tones, never harsh white. Lights may be tucked into the base of a wall, hidden under the lip of a step, woven into the beams of a pergola. A clay lantern may cast patterns onto the ground. A cluster of small solar lamps may mark the path through a meadow. At night, the garden takes on a second life. The focus shifts from colour to form and shadow. The glow of the fire pit becomes a gathering point. The illuminated urn becomes a sculpture. Light in this setting is not constant. It breathes with the garden. Planting design in this style is layered. We think in terms of structure, texture and rhythm, not just colour. Tall grasses create movement at the upper level, their seed heads catching the wind. Below them, shrubs provide shape and permanence. At the ground layer, low herbs and flowering perennials offer intimacy and seasonal variety. Climbers are strategic. They draw the eye upward, they connect vertical structures to the ground. They may frame an entrance or soften the edges of a wall. Some, like wisteria, announce their presence in spring. Others, like ivy, work quietly year-round. The plant palette avoids the overly exotic. Instead, it celebrates what thrives here naturally, plants that will mature gracefully, that will not demand more water or care than the land can give. Pathways are designed as sequences. They lead not just from one point to another, but from one experience to another. The sound of gravel underfoot shifts to the firmness of stone, then to the gentle give of grass. Each change in texture marks a shift in mood. Some paths narrow, drawing you in, then opens suddenly onto a terrace or view. Others meander without hurry, offering small surprises. A hidden bench, a pottery arrangement, a glimpse of water through leaves. The journey through the garden is as important as the destination. Even the smallest details matter. A timber gate with a hand-forged latch, a clay pot tilted just enough to spill flowers over its edge, a stone step worn smooth at the centre. These are the moments that give a garden its soul. They cannot be rushed. They come from patience, from use, from living with the space over time. The modern rustic garden is not about perfection. It is about presence. Every weathered surface, every shifting shadow, every bird that lands on the edge of the fountain adds to its story. And like any good design, it continues to evolve, never exactly the same from one year to the next. In a modern rustic garden, the sense of place is everything. It is not simply a matter of arranging plants and materials, but of weaving a narrative that connects the land, the architecture, and the people who inhabit it. When I walk through such a garden, I am not just observing space, I am experiencing a conversation between human intention and natural evolution. The garden begins with the land's own voice. Before a single stone is placed, before a single timber is cut, we listen. We study the contours, the prevailing winds, the arc of sunlight through the day. We look at what already grows here, what the soil allows, what wildlife passes through. These observations guide every decision, ensuring that the garden feels inevitable, as though always belonged to this place. The structures are then shaped around these truths. A pergola may be oriented to catch the last light of evening. A deck might be designed to overlook a particular cluster of trees, or a distant view that deserves framing. Even a simple bench might be placed where the morning sun first touches the ground. Materials are chosen not only for beauty, but for their relationship to the site. If there is stone in the surrounding landscape, we echo it in the walls and paths. If the region is rich in clay, we use it for pottery, tiles, and small architectural details. This is how a garden becomes rooted, by speaking the same language as the land it occupies. One of the defining characteristics of the modern rustic garden in 2025 is its embrace of imperfection. We have moved away from the obsession with flawless surfaces and perfect symmetry. Instead, we invite irregularity. A stone path may have uneven edges, a wooden beam may bear knots and cracks, a clay pot may be slightly misshapen. These details are not errors. They are authenticity made visible. They remind us that nature does not work in straight lines, and that beauty often comes from the unexpected. This philosophy also influences the planting style. Rather than rigid rows and clipped forms, plants are allowed to spill, to seed themselves, to mingle. Perennials and herbs intermingle in a way that feels accidental, yet is guided by a careful hand. Grasses lean into pathways, flowers sway over seating areas. Scent drifts unpredictably through the air. Seating areas in the modern rustic garden are not just functional spots to rest. They are moments of pause, points where the rhythm of movement slows, where the garden invites you to linger. A stone bench might be tucked into a curve of the path, partly shaded by an overhanging branch. A reclaimed timber chair might be placed on a small terrace, overlooking the herb beds. Some seating is communal, built for conversation and gatherings. Other spots are intimate, meant for solitary reflection, perhaps with a book or a morning cup of coffee. The design of these areas considers not only comfort, but also the sensory experience. Where will the light fall at sunset? What scents will be strongest in the early evening? Will the sound of water or wind in the grasses accompany the moment? Outdoor dining is a natural extension of the modern rustic garden. It reflects the idea that the garden is not separate from daily life, but an integral part of it. Tables crafted from reclaimed planks, solid and weather-resistant, become the centerpiece of meals shared outdoors. Clay pizza ovens, barbecue stations built from stone, and countertops made from salvaged slabs create spaces where cooking becomes performance and eating becomes an act of connection. Pots of fresh herbs are kept close, basil, thyme, mint, and parsley within arm's reach of the cook. Candles or lanterns on the table provide soft, flickering light, merging with the surrounding garden's gentle illumination. It is in these settings that the boundaries between indoor and outdoor living truly dissolve. In terms of spatial layout, the modern rustic garden values flow over formality. Spaces are connected in a way that feels organic, but each one has its own identity. A shaded corner with ferns and moss might lead into a sunny lawn edged with wildflowers. A narrow gravel path might suddenly open onto a stone terrace with wide views of the horizon. This sequencing of spaces is deliberate, designed to evoke a sense of discovery. Even in a small garden, we can create moments of surprise. A curve in the path hides what's ahead, a change in level offers a new perspective, a gap in the hedge frames an unexpected view. Sustainability, in the third phase of our design thinking, becomes deeply personal. It is not only about systems, the rainwater harvesting, the solar lighting, the compost bins, but about habits. A modern rustic garden encourages its owner to become part of the ecological rhythm. You harvest vegetables from the raised beds. You collect herbs for cooking. You compost the kitchen scraps. You prune and plant with the seasons. In this way, the garden is not a static work of design, but a living, evolving collaboration between the land and those who care for it. Wildlife integration is another layer. The modern rustic garden welcomes life in all forms. Birds find food and shelter among the shrubs. Pollinators move from flower to flower, essential to the health of the ecosystem. Even small mammals and beneficial insects have their place here. To encourage this, we plant native species that support local wildlife. We provide shallow water sources, dense plantings for cover, and flowering plants that bloom at different times of the year, ensuring a steady food supply. The result is a garden that feels alive, not just in its plants, but in its constant movement and sound. In every corner, the modern rustic garden tells a story. A pile of reclaimed bricks might hint at the site's previous life. A weathered gate might have been salvaged from a family farm. Each object, each material carries its own history. And together they create a layered narrative. By the time you have walked its paths, sat in its quiet corners, listened to its sounds, you understand that this garden is not only designed to be seen, it is designed to be felt. And it is in that feeling, the quiet blend of human craft and natural truth, that its true beauty lies.